couple of bluebirds flying around. They were checking the bluebird bomb.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone at home. Um, we'd like to continue with our series on local birds and their travels. And just pointing out that this week there are a couple of hikes that are going to happen. So tomorrow, Thursday, I'm going to be at the Heritage Trail. Giving a hike there. Lately, we've been seeing a lot of neat water birds. The ducks are molting in, and if you look close when ducks take off, you'll see green-winged teals and blue-winged teals. So if anyone's interested, at 4 o'clock tomorrow, where the Heritage Trail meets 6.5 Station Road. Then we're doing another smaller hike Saturday at Norman Brook near Warwick. Please register for that because parking is limited. This Sunday we'll be at the Bashakill, where there'll be a hike at 10 o'clock in the morning and a kayak ride at 2:30. And there's an environmental center there, Meek, where you can rent kayaks if you'd like. And then later in the month, we have another hike near Montgomery. And shortly after that, just outside Montgomery, the Shawangunk grasslands, I will take a tour there. So it's such beautiful weather. And if you were interested in getting out and about, we do a group, but then there's also, the Bashakill Area Association, the Mamakating Environmental Education Center, the Mearns Bird Club. So there's so many organizations that can help introduce you to local birds. What I'd like to do is talk about raptors tonight. And I wish I could do a better job on this. But like using the word raptor, it kind of begs the question, what's a raptor? And the answer is, that's actually a hard question to answer. Because you'd want to say it's a bird of prey, all right, a bird that eats other animals. But then a lot of birds do that. I mean, birds are always eating bugs. Birds are always eating smaller things. But then there are even birds that can prey on other birds. Like the shrike is a songbird. It's not a raptor, but it hunts other birds. It grabs them and it throws them into thorns where they get impaled, and then it will eat them. Crows and ravens, they'll eat a lot of things. All right, they'll prey on baby birds. They'll prey on eggs. And so, if we're going to use the bird of prey definition, a lot of birds eat other animals, so that's not necessarily the best definition. In the raptors, traditionally, we have different groups. Like we have a group which we'll call the hawks and the eagles. All right. We'll put that there are falcons, there are vultures, there are owls. But lately, the geneticists have gotten involved and they said, oh, and there's this bird in Africa, which I love. It's called the secretary bird, and it's related to hawks and eagles. Note its long legs. And I always find that interesting because the first fossil of um, of raptors that we know of, and forgive me, I think someone's just making a little background noise, has very long legs as well. But once we start comparing their DNA, we realize, wow, owls really aren't that closely related to the other ones, and falcons aren't related at all. All right, so falcons have always been considered birds of prey, um, but they're actually more closely related to songbirds. Owls are distantly related. There may be two groups of vultures, all right, the vultures of Africa, Asia, and Europe, and then vultures of the New World, but they're not related. So a New World vulture is not related to this guy. That's an Old World vulture. So it seems like, oh, raptors, birds of prey, everyone knows what they are. And actually, no, we don't. Like we use the term vulture, but vultures aren't necessarily related to each other. We use the term eagles, but eagles aren't really closely related to each other. It's like bald eagles and golden eagles are just big hawks that have evolved from different sub-branches of the hawk family. Here's a condor that is a relative of New World vultures, not Old World vultures. And so, if we were to ask currently, what do we consider a raptor? Well, there's legal senses, like you're not allowed to hunt them, there are fines. So, birds of prey will fit all of these. But we put falcons in one order, separate from the vultures, which are in this order, separate from the owls, which are in this bird order. But actually, barn owls are so distantly related from other owls that we put them in a different order. Here we have the order that contains most hawks and eagles, but there are bald eagles are more closely related to this hawk, while golden eagles would be more closely related to this hawk. The osprey is in its own separate order. So I want to talk about birds. I don't want to talk about definitions. I just wanted to mention that the word raptor um, is a little bit complicated. Now, this time of year, they're migrating. And so one of the things that might interest you is to try to identify raptors, especially since they often soar and we can see them. Obviously, a lot of times they'll be hunting for their prey, sitting on a bare branch somewhere, like that owl we just saw or this falcon. And for a beginner birder, if they're sitting still, you've got a few moments to get your binoculars on them or a scope on them or focus your camera, unlike the songbirds. At some of our marshes and wetlands, they're hunting. So they're flying low over the grassland. So you'll be able to see this owl, this harrier hawk. And so this is a great time of year to go looking for. Who might you see? Well, we have already had a talk on the bald eagles. I would be happy to talk more, but let's start with everyone who's not a bald eagle first. If something were to fly overhead and you were to think, I think this is a raptor, sometimes you only get a split second to look at it if it's flying across the field of view. So there's a couple of things you cue on. First, how big is it? All right, because if it's big with really long wings, now you might be looking at an eagle or a vulture. All right. If the wings are held in a V shape, then we're looking vulture. Whereas if they're straight out, now we're thinking eagle. And the eagle wings are so much longer relative to their body than the other groups. Hawks are a little smaller than eagles, and we split the hawks into two groups, and perhaps the easiest ways to look at their tail. Is it a fan-shaped tail, in which case we say, aha, you're a buteo hawk, and we're going to start with those. If they're a little smaller, they've got shorter wings and they've got a longer tail, that is an accipiter hawk. If they have pointed wings and a body shape like this, then it's a falcon. Now, I'm going to talk about the falcons tonight, even though they're really not closely related to these, just because you might see them in the day and you might confuse them. Owls, I'm going to talk about in the next presentation next week. And so, these raptor groups, we have a lot that we can discuss, but we'll mention and we'll break them into groups. So let's start just seeing some of the beautiful things that we'll see, especially this time of year. And let's start with this bird here. Now, I was in the Everglades in March, and I got these pictures. So clearly, this is an adult osprey feeding its young. So some ospreys will breed in Florida and spend all year round. All right, so these are obviously doing that. Most don't do that. And most go back and forth between areas like ours and then areas farther south because these are fish-eating eagles. And once the water starts to freeze, then obviously eating fish is a problem. So these were with us all summer. You could have seen them. And you might see a lot of them now as they migrate farther south. But then this winter, we're probably going to go a while not seeing the ospreys. Now, how would you recognize an osprey? Well, they're big. They're sometimes called a fishing eagle. They're not quite as big as bald eagles because bald eagles are huge, but they're certainly big. But they're in a separate order. So all of the hawks are more closely related to bald eagles than this bird, even though this is eagle size, it's got white on it and it feeds on fish. It's not a relative of the bald eagle. When it flies overhead, note that it has a white stomach. Bald eagles never do that. I mean, bald eagles have white here and there at different stages of their lives. They have a white head and tail later in life, but they never do this, where their underside is white, and they don't have this big brown stripe here. So if you get a good look there, that can help. Also, look at the elbow. See the kink in it. All right, bald eagle wings are straight, whereas if you look something overhead and it looks like an M, That's what they say. Like, if you see something that looks like an M, you say, aha, that's an osprey, because hawks and eagles typically keep um, their wings straight. And, ideally, oh, you're getting the colors in there as well. But sometimes a bird passes over very quick and it's backlit. You don't get a good view. So, whatever view you can get, whatever cues help you, um, that's good. Ospreys are excellent at catching fish, far better than bald eagles. Bald eagles have a greater efficiency of taking fish away from ospreys than they do catching fish on their own. All right, so ospreys are the real, good fishers, and bald eagles know that. They'll look for ospreys and see if they have any fish. That was probably one of the reasons that Benjamin Franklin argued that the bald eagle should not be uh, our national symbol, because it was a bird of bad moral character. I think because it would sometimes steal from other birds. So, you can judge moral character of birds however you want. Um, so here are birds that I was able to just take a picture of a couple weeks ago in Cape May. And the point that I wanted to kind of paint is ospreys can start in Florida and then come, March or April of this year, work their way up to our area or areas farther north, where they will spend their summer and go fishing here in fresh water near brackish water. But then around this time of year, a lot of them are packing it up and going farther south. So if you were to visit Cape May, you'll see a lot of ospreys. All right, and a lot of them are now heading farther south, and we'll get to see them again later. Okay, so ospreys are wonderful birds, and as we go through the diversity of raptors in our area, ospreys are one of them. One of the neat things about ospreys is while most birds, like bald eagles, are really shy and want to nest away from humans, ospreys don't mind as much. So every now and then, like certainly lakes in this area can do this. If you go closer to the shore, they'll put up a big pole with a platform on it, and ospreys will nest. And very often you can park your car very close and you can fix your binoculars on it. I know in Pennsylvania, Lake Wallenpaupack does that, and they've got, you can just park your car and look at ospreys nesting and watch them feeding their young. So that's something that, bald eagles won't let you do. So that's kind of a neat thing here. Yeah, sure. Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
Yes, so they actually had engineers go in.
Oh, wow.
I can't imagine how much that cost. To have engineer build basket type of thing so that they would build.
Oh, okay.
Because you can't make them stop.
So, if those of you at home, I know you can't always hear questions in the room. Dorothy had mentioned that at Bear Mountain Bridge, that there were ospreys which were nesting there, but it looked like at one point the nest might fall. So engineers had to construct something that would maintain it. So that's a neat story. Thank you, Dorothy. So as we go on, once again, let's skip the red-tailed or the bald eagle for now, and let's talk about the hawks. Now, some of the hawks we see will be living with us all summer, but some are migrating. So that will be a continual theme. So let's mention that. Now, if you were to say, look at the Delaware River on a day like today, one of the things that leaps out is there's going to be different temperatures there. The rock is going to heat up fast. The forest, not so much. The water, even slower. And the reason that matters is that warm air rises. So right over the rock face, and there's a big exposed rock face there, there's going to be hot air rising. And then all around it from the forest, there's going to be this cool air coming in, all right, to replace the hot air. So there's going to be a current of cold air coming to the rock, warming up, going up, more cold air coming in, coming up. And if you've got big wings, you can take advantage of this. Now, small birds which are migrating, they're going to have to do a lot of flapping. The energy that it takes is enormous. But if you've got big wings, so here's a place called Sunrise Mountain in New Jersey, maybe 25 minutes from here. And one of the things I like about this is, there's places you can walk if you want to look at uh, uh, migrating hawks. But this place is actually right next to the parking area. So you park your car, and then immediately afterwards, there is, it's not even 100 yards where you can sit here on a cliff face and just watch as birds migrate along the cliffs here. But you don't even need cliffs because here we are near Florida, and there's a field, and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, there's a rising air current here because obviously the rocks near the Delaware River provide uneven surfaces. But if we have black asphalt and then green parks, once again you've got this uneven surface with currents of air. And so look at all of these birds, right? So that's a crow flying by, so it's flapping. But look at all the raptors up here. They're not flapping their wings. They're using only a tiny bit more energy than they would if they were just sitting on a branch. And they can travel, dozens and dozens of miles without flapping. So what they'll do is they'll ride up an air current, all right? And then once they get high enough, then they'll glide slowly down. And then they'll seek out another air current, go up again, and then glide slowly down. And so now they're migrating very long distances potentially without really using much energy, unlike these little songbirds that have to keep flapping. Like we have songbirds in our area, like the kinglets, tiny little birds. They don't migrate. They'd be exhausted. Like it would just take more energy than they have in them. So then they'll stay here all winter, even though a lot of them will freeze to death because they're not good at dealing with the cold. Now, you just saw a whole bunch of vultures there, but I always like looking at the birds because you never know. All of a sudden you're in a bunch of vultures and, oh, look, there's an eagle. Some of these might be immature bald eagles. But this is something that we'll see a lot of these raptors doing, such as the red-tailed hawks. So here you can see a mature red-tailed hawk, and you see the orangish tail feathers that it has. And if the light catches it just right, you can clearly see, aha, you are a red-tailed hawk. I see why you have your name. Unfortunately, here's a red-tailed hawk as well, but it's a little younger. All right, and the sunlight's a cloudy day. The sunlight's not helping us out. But a young red-tailed hawk has a light brown tail, like a grayish brown. It's not the red. And so the red tail isn't necessarily the best thing to go for. But you know what is the bib? All right, so red-tailed hawks, they've got a white chest, but then they've got some brown streaking there. So that's actually, if you see a big thing that you think is a hawk, look for a white bib, right? So that it's white up top and then maybe some brown underneath, and you say, aha, that's the red-tailed hawk. That's the good giveaway there. So here you can see that one was on the telephone line and went to the ground. Once again, you can see that nice white bib that it has. They can vary in how much brown streaking they have. That was a little less than the previous one. They do change color over time. So here is a young individual, which still has like more of a yellowish iris. They get darker brown later on. Over the course of the year, we see them changing. So here, as this red-tailed hawk flies over, you'll notice that it will be molting its feathers in just a second. I just talk about this. So whenever you see birds, I very often say like, ooh, what's wrong with that bird? Like some birds will look, shabby. They'll look, their feathers will look all uneven. Birds replace their feathers throughout the year in what's called a molt. While some birds like ducks do it all at once, other birds, they try to do it here and there so that it's not too much energy at once. And they might try to do it so that it's not competing with the energy they want to use with maybe breeding or migrating. So if you're going to invest a whole lot of energy in raising your young or flying far south, try not to molt your feathers then. Try to molt it when you're sitting still without your kids, because then you're not trying to split your energy resources to various things. But here's a red-tailed hawk molting its feathers. Here's another good look at it there. So red-tailed hawks are partial migrants. So a good question is, what are they going to do now that it's getting to autumn? The answer is, I don't know. They might go south. They might stay. So some of them have territories here where they have a nest and they've raised their young. And sometimes if you put all this work into, defending a territory and this is your nest, sometimes you stay. And sometimes, you kind of stake this out. This is my place, so that no one else tries to invade it. And they certainly could do that. Red-tailed hawks will stay with us all winter. One reason is that they eat rodents, all right, unlike the birds which are eating bugs. If you're eating bugs, you kind of have to fly south because once it gets cold, then the availability of bugs certainly goes down. But if you're going to eat rodents, rodents are still around in winter. Hawks can eat other birds as well. And so these hawks might stay. Another possibility is our red-tailed hawks go to Virginia and Maine's red-tailed hawks come here. So you might see red-tailed hawks near your house all year round and assume that they stay. That's not necessarily the case, so migration can sometimes be a little complicated. Come spring, they'll make a nest, not as big as a bald eagle's nest, but pretty big nonetheless. All right. And they'll have to sit on these eggs for about a month, and then for about a month and a half, feed their young. Notice here's that yellow iris of an immature bird that has hatched in the year that I took the picture. Okay. So red-tailed hawks, they're probably the most common hawks in our area. So when you see a hawk, it's probably a red-tailed hawk. But every now and then, right, if you look at the chest, notice no bib, right? That's not a pure white chest. That's not a red-tailed hawk. This one's a little bit smaller. This is what's called a red-shouldered hawk. So red-shouldered hawks are neat hawks. You won't see them sitting out in the open quite as often. You'll see them a little bit more in forests. Their calls are different. And they do prey on snakes, just like red-tailed hawks, on rodents, just like red-tailed hawks. But they'll also feed a little bit more on birds. All right. Now, red shoulder, it kind of depends on how the sunlight hits it. Like I can see like a little more of a reddish pigment there, but once again, the sun would have to hit it right, and you'd say, oh yeah, I see red on the shoulder. Notice also they're variable, just like you look at people, we vary. You look at dogs, we vary. Not all red-shouldered hawk are the same. Some have more spotting on their chest than others. Now, because a lot of raptors will prey on birds, but especially red-shouldered hawks. Here you can see red-shouldered hawks being mobbed. All right. So as you go by, you'll notice the sun is catching this really nicely. So you'll see reddish on the shoulders, and you'll see why it has that name. Notice the tail. Notice that there are thin, dark, and light stripes. All right. So you would note that it wasn't a red-tailed hawk. And it's being mobbed. These are pictures that I took near Goshen at the sanctuary, where it was flying over a swamp and the red-winged blackbirds attacked it. And that's because if you're going to nest in a forest, if you're a bird, you can tuck your nest in the branches where it's hard to see. But if you're in a swamp and you put your nest kind of just in reeds, well, a person or a fox can't see it. But anything flying overhead, like there's no trees in the middle of a swamp. So anything flying overhead, it gets a perfect view of where your nest is, where your eggs are, and where your young are. And so if a red-shouldered hawk starts flying over a swamp, all the red-winged blackbirds, all of the flycatchers will do something called mobbing. They are mobbing the red-shouldered hawk to try to get it to go out of their territory and thus protect their young. All right, so once again, you can kind of see the red shoulders for which it has its name. Okay. I was just at Florida, I think like 3 weeks ago. Florida, New York here. And I got this picture where these are starlings doing the same thing to a red-shouldered hawk. Red-shouldered hawks will eat birds. And so you'll notice that all of these starlings are mobbing it, just kind of harassing the red-shouldered hawk to make its life difficult to the point where it decides, you know what, I'm going to go somewhere else. This is just too much trouble here. And so that's a common behavior of smaller birds. But once you see it, you say, aha, I know that's a red-shouldered hawk because you can see these multiple stripes on the tail. Now, if you notice, this tail kind of looks like a fan, a triangular fan, and that's what we see in the buteo hawks. Red-tailed hawks, buteo hawks with a fan-shaped tail. Red-shouldered hawks, buteo hawks with a fan-shaped tail. And the last of the, I'm sorry. Before I get to I forgot about this video. I mentioned that the ospreys might actually, while most of them migrate, go from the north to the south. But when you're in the tip of Florida, there's like a separate population that might say, nah, we're good. We're going to stay here all year round. At a certain point, that they actually become a subspecies because they're not having sex with the ones which are in Orange County. So if most of the population of, say, ospreys is spending their winters in the South, but coming up to, like, New York, Maine, Canada to breed, any ones that stay in Florida, they're now in a different breeding pool. They're not mating with New York ospreys anymore. So they're kind of separate. And the same here. This one looks a little odd. Like, the face looks a little grayer than I'm used to. This is a Florida red-shouldered hawk, but some of them stay in Florida all year round. So once again, it's considered a different subspecies. They're really not mating with the red-shouldered hawks, which make their way up to New York. So, just, one of the things which is fascinating, a century and a half ago, people just thought nature was static. All right, but now nature is always changing and new species are always potentially arising. So here, whether it be the ospreys or the red-shouldered hawks in Florida, if they're not going to mate with the New York, the ones which are migrating back and forth, at a certain point they might become their own separate species. It's neat to say, it's neat to see how nature continues to change. Right. So next explanation for the different coloring on the I'm sure there is. I mean, the sunlight would be different, the prey would be different, the predators would be different. So something that's trying to hide in a forest might have different light hitting it than if you're trying to hide in Florida, which is a little bit more open. So that's great. So the lighter color might be more indicative of their more open areas that they stay in. But I'm just guessing. I'm sorry, I don't know anything more than that. That's a great question. Now, this might be your last chance to see these guys this year. Here's the smallest of the Buteo hawks, which we commonly have. This is a broad-winged hawk. Now notice, once I see it, I know it is not a red tail because it doesn't have the big bib. All right, so it's got a solid chest. Also, it's smaller. This is smaller than the red shoulder as well. This is a broad-winged hawk. They are forest hawks. So I'll bet you a lot of you haven't seen them. I'll bet you've heard them though. All right, they have like these single note piercing sounds. How dark their chest is can vary. In fact, out west, there's some that are just chocolate brown all over. All right. When they fly, this is a key. There's a big white stripe on their tail, as opposed to the series of small, dark, and light stripes here. Now, I said the red shoulders, they may stay here all winter. I'm sorry, red tails may stay here all winter. Red shoulders are more likely to migrate, but red shoulders could stay here all winter. These guys are all going to go. All right, so hawks are varying in their migration patterns. All of the broad wings from the summer are all going south. We don't expect any here on in the colder weather. Here you see more of a forest hawk. Once again, it flew to the ground and is staying there. In fact, when they fly south, they're famous for forming flocks, which can have hundreds, even thousands of individuals. All right, so birds sometimes when they migrate have behaviors different from what they have other times of the year. Okay, so broadwing hawks. That's another group. Once again, notice the dark chest here. Now, here's a bird, I didn't see it last winter, and I'm wondering whether, with climate change and the warming winter, that's a reason. Here is another Buteo hawk, but the only time to see it is winter. So the broadwing hawks are going south for the winter, but so are these guys. These are called rough-legged hawks. So you won't see them in spring, summer, or autumn. But if you're lucky, you'll see them in winter. Now, when it's flying, and I apologize, like they're not that easy to see, and only in the one season, so I don't really have great video of them. This one, as it flies, it's doing two things. One, it's got this big white band on its tail, got some dark spots under the wings. But at some point, it'll actually hover, all right, where it'll just kind of stay in one place. Now, kestrels, which are falcons, do that, but hawks usually don't. So that's a way that if you were saying, oh, it's a big hawk in the distance, I'm not sure, it's a cloudy winter day, it might be a red tail. But if you see it hovering in one place, you say, aha, that is a rough-legged hawk. That was a special bird to see today. So we have hawks with fan-shaped tails called Buteo hawks. We now move to the next group, which have the narrower tails. These are the accipiter hawks. This one's pretty big. And this one, if you were to see a goshawk, you would call it a good day because these are difficult birds to see. A trail camera that I put up near Warwick at one of the Audubon properties managed to get this one in a dry summer. All right, and so that's another reason to protect wild spaces because this is a bird that's going to hunt from the trees, but it needs to drink as well. So in this dry summer, this was neat. So goshawks are the largest of the accipiter hawks with their fan-shaped tails. And like most of the accipiters, they will defend their nest. The little one that I'll mention in a little bit of sharpshin, I happened to be in the woods one day hiking a trail, and I must have been near a sharpshin nest because it was screeching. I didn't know what it was. I was like, I had a bird book. I was trying to figure out what it was. And then it came at my face. It didn't get too close. Like it kind of like veered at the last minute and went off. That's what, so it was stooping at my face as a way of kind of saying, like, defending its nest. So, commendable parenting there. Goshawks will go after you. And so there have been individuals who thought it would be fun to, climb a tree and check out a goshawk nest. Well, goshawks defend their nest, so that's, highly recommended that you don't do this. Accipiters are very good at fighting and going after birds. Now they'll eat anything, but their name goshawk came from the term goosehawk. All right, so all of the accipiters, are a little bit more adept at preying on birds. This one, oh, just beautiful, beautiful to see. I don't see these like often. Like if you're in the woods, you won't see like harrier hawks. They're hard to see. But if you're near a swamp or a marsh, even in winter, your chance of seeing a harrier is pretty good. And there are certain marshes like the Shawangunk grasslands, or the Bashakil. I'm sorry, not the Bashakil. I'm sorry, the Liberty Loop, which is in the Wallkill Preserve, about a 25-minute drive south of here. But you can be fairly certain of seeing harriers there, and very often, multiple harriers. And what they do is they just glide over a wetland looking for the voles and the mice, etc. Here we are at Goshen, the 6.5 station sanctuary. That's the building that this was last year, so its construction has been finished. But they just fly kind of low to the ground, looking for these things. So they're easy to see. They're easy to take pictures of. They're easy to get in your binoculars, and they've got this big white spot on their rump, so that makes their identification a little easier. Every now and then you'll see them go down. So here's one at the Wallkill Preserve. Every now and then you'll see it go to the ground and try to capture something. So here's harrier hawks. So even in winter, these are fairly easy to see. And I'd like to talk about the owls in the next talk. But come winter, I'd like to yeah, let me just go back to the end. I'd like to do some walks where we look for the owls, and it's right around dusk where the harriers go away and the owls are coming out, but there are these brief moments where they're all out together, making your life difficult, and they sometimes spar with each other. So sometimes you'll see like the hawks and the owls fighting each other. Male harriers have a lighter color and are called gray ghosts, especially like when it's dusk and you see one, it kind of looks like this phantomy type of thing. So there's a gray ghost flying. You notice it's gray color. And you would say, aha, gray ghost, that's a male harrier. Last year at Goshen here, I saw a harrier hawk and a red-tailed hawk on the same day. And then they took to the air at the same time. And the red-tailed hawk is bigger, but as you'll see, the harrier hawk chased it away. Now, they can feed on lots of things, including gulls. So whenever these hawks fly by, like the harriers, like, yeah, it's looking for rodents, but it'll go after anything it can find, especially on a cold winter day. So the gulls are looking for hawks. And if they see a harrier hawk swooping around, those gulls that were sitting on the ice, they all took off, all right, because they know that the harrier would be happy to prey on them. Bald eagles are happy to prey on birds. So birds like near the water, like ducks and gulls, they'll try to fly away whenever these raptors come. So here we have this harrier flying on the same day, and I managed to get still pictures of this. Oh, actually, and here's the video. But this is a red-tailed hawk and a harrier. Right, the harrier is behind. Notice it has a narrower tail, and it chases the red-tailed hawk off, like, and you'll see it kind of diving at it there. All right, so the Harrier hawk a little smaller, had a white spot on the tail. But there's only so much food, and the Harrier's happy to try to chase potential predator away, even one that was a little bit bigger. So that was kind of neat to watch. Once again, there's the Harrier going after the red tail. So Harrier hawks are neat, and if you haven't seen one, I think a lot of people haven't, then once again, some of our marshes are great places to see. Okay. A little smaller than the goshawk and the Harrier is a Cooper's hawk, also an accipiter. So notice the long tail here. It has a smaller than usual head. That might help with its identification. Often some streaking on the chest. I have a song, if anyone cares. So if you have a bird feeder, every now and then you'll notice Cooper's hawks hanging in your area because they eat birds. They kind of special. I mean, they'll eat a lot of things, but birds are one of their specialties. And so they have shorter wings than, say, a red tail, but you want that if you're going to fly in a forest after birds, because the bigger your wings, you're just going to hit branches and get scratched. So if you're going to try to navigate, among all these branches, the narrower your wings, that sometimes can help. So the term chicken hawk probably applies to a couple of hawks. So there's not like this is the chicken hawk. But Cooper's hawks would commonly be referred to as chicken hawks because once again, they would prey on diverse species of birds. Okay. Here is a Cooper's hawk. A friend of mine was a wildlife rehabilitator, and so if raptors ever got like hit by a car or damaged wings, he would try to turn them back into the wild or use them for educational programs if they were permanently injured and couldn't go back to the wild. So here's a Cooper's hawk. And one of the things that the accipiters have is longer legs. So you can see the long legs of this Cooper's hawk. Smaller still is something known as a sharp-shinned hawk. And I don't see them that often. All right. And they are annoying in that I would love to get pictures of for the newsletter that I put together. But they're forest hawks, so they're not going to sit out in the open, and they're not going to like soar and just fly around so they give you a chance to get your camera. Like if you see one, it's like, oh, there it goes. Oh, it kind of looks like an accipiter. I see the narrow tail, and it's gone. All right, and so your chance to photograph it are minimal. Notice its long tail. All right, and they tend to have shorter wings. These are devilishly hard to distinguish from Cooper's hawks. Now, Coopers are bigger, but you always have to be careful with raptors because females are bigger and males are smaller. So a male Cooper's is small for a Cooper's hawk. A female sharpshin is big for a sharpshin. So a female of this species is about the same size as a male of the Coopers. So it really is hard to distinguish between them, and you're looking at some minor details. Perhaps the easiest one would be a sharpshin has more of a squared tail, while a Cooper's would have rounder edges to their tail. That's perhaps the easiest way. But once again, if something's flying over very quickly, a lot of birders will either write it, it was one of the accipiters. It was like a Cooper or a sharpshin. If you use the Merlin app, that's actually my fault. If you use eBird to register your birds, that's one of your options. It was an accipiter because, people know, like you can't always tell if it just, it was one of the two here. So the sharp-shinned hawks may remain, but most of them are migrating south. I was, like as I said, in Cape May, and Cape May is famous for just migrations, and so I got these images of sharp-shinned hawks because hawk migration varies. So if you go early in the season, like September and October, you're going to see a lot of Sharpies. That's the nickname for sharp-shinned hawks. You're going to see lots of the broad-winged hawks. Whereas if you go later, you'll see different species. So not everyone's migrating at the same time. And, you just sit in one spot and hopefully these birds are catching thermals. And as they fly, you can say, aha, I noticed the long tail. All right, and then it would be things like the squared edges of the tail, and the size that would alert you that it's a sharp-shinned hawk. Okay, and once again, they can migrate in big groups, so like they're hard to see except during migration, because then you'll see like a whole bunch of them potentially in the same group. Okay, so let me just jump down before we talk about falcons. So everything that I've just said is related to each other. All right, so the hawks and eagles, they are a group. All right, order accipiter forms, and in the same family, except for the osprey, which is in its own separate family. Old world vultures. So if you ever watch movies like from the old world, like Africa or Asia, and you see vultures, they're more closely related to hawks and eagles than these guys. These are new world vultures. All right, so turkey vultures, black vultures, and this is a roadkill near Goshen. I think last year, if I recall. And notice you can see both the turkey vultures with the red heads and the black vultures with the black heads. And they are related to condors. Condors are the largest flying birds in the world, but only the ones living today. There were fossil relatives of condors out west, which had wingspans up to 18 feet, and in South America up to 26 feet. All right, and so this group of New World vultures includes the largest flying birds that have ever lived. Now, their naked head looks odd, but clearly there is an advantage. Because, like, if you're going to spend your day sticking your face into a carcass, like if you had like feathers all over your face or hair all over your face, you're just going to be messy and stinky as anything, but also then more prone to disease because you've just got all of this rotting material just stuck to your face. So having a featherless head, it's just a good hygiene if you're going to live that way. These birds live on meat, but they almost never kill. Like a vulture might kill a dying animal, but other than that, like, and that's kind of, I don't know, I think there's a beauty there that you can eat meat and still never kill. And as such, they're great at just garbage disposal. I mean, just think of all the rotting flesh we would have around here if it wasn't for them. All right, we would be more vulnerable for diseases. There would be just more illnesses and pathogens spreading if, the dead flesh wasn't removed. And so, vultures are neat. They might get, a bad rap, but once again, eating a dead deer, that might be distasteful, but having the dead deer just stay there, and just slowly rot, etc., would probably be less desirable. At this time of year, most turkey vultures are going south. We've been having warmer and warmer winters, as I'm sure you know. And so old rules don't necessarily apply where, the things that should migrate south more might decide to stay. I mean, if you're old, I certainly classify myself as old. This whole thing where the Canada geese spend all winter here, that's kind of a new thing. Like, like when we were younger, that was just starting. Now it's common, like there are Canada geese which are resident. They intend on staying here all winter. That wasn't the case. All Canada geese used to migrate back in the day. And so we're seeing that with turkey vultures a bit more, where some of them are staying in our area throughout winter. But most will migrate south. So on a day like today, they're going to wait until you start to get the sun warms up like black asphalt or bare rock and starts this thermal, and look at all, and then you'll just see groups of them. Right. And so, there are certain times of year where this is a great time to go bird watching because you're going to see more vultures in one spot than you would typically. You might see other things migrating with them. You might see broad-winged hawks that you otherwise wouldn't see, or sharp-shinned hawks, etc. And then here, I think my next video, or one of my next videos, is about this. Just if you look at every bird every now and then, you'll say, oh, okay, a bunch of turkey vultures or some black vultures. I'll talk about them next. But every now and then you'll say, oh, wait, that's a bald eagle. And just so, they can migrate in groups, and every now and then you see something a little more interesting. Okay, and so here just more and more things. Once again, if you were to go to Sunrise Mountain in New Jersey and sit on the cliff face, you're almost at eye level of some of these things flying. So that's kind of a neat experience as well. So we have turkey vultures and we have black vultures. This is kind of a new thing in that I remember the first time when I was a kid, we took a family trip down to Florida. I remember seeing all these black vultures, and I had never seen them before. This was a Florida thing. This was a Carolina thing. You'd see black vultures when you went south. It was like maybe 15 years ago, more and more black vultures around here. Once again, it's been warming, right? And so a lot of the birds which used to be restricted to more southern ranges, we're seeing more and more. And now black vultures are here to stay. I mean, we have lots and lots of black vultures. This is a relatively new, um, a new phenomenon. They're a little smaller than the turkey vultures. Obviously, they don't have that red head. They have the black heads, as you can see here. And they are a little bit different in flight, where a turkey vulture a little more likely to have white patches under its wings. Now I'm just going to shift gears for a second and just go to some pictures. So I just some highlights before I get into the last group of the falcons. So if you're out birding, look for ospreys. But once again, sometimes you only get a split second to see birds. And so, out of all of the features, a couple which would leap out is white belly, completely white belly. All right. Oh, and I saw the kink in the wings, and you're like, that's an osprey. All right. So with all of the birds, that's a good thing. What are you looking for in that group of birds if you just have a split second? If it's sitting still, white belly, and if it's got like a brown stripe at the eye, that would help you there. So, lots of good osprey pictures here. Okay. Red-tailed hawk, buteo hawk. All right. So you've got the fan-shaped tail, you've got the bib. All right, a white chest, but then there's brown underneath it. If the sun is just right, you see the red on the tail. Unfortunately, immatures with the yellow, sometimes have a duller tail. Sometimes it's cloudy and you don't get the sunlight going through it. So that's perhaps, just to keep in mind. Red-shouldered hawks, a little bit smaller. You can make out a little bit of reddish on the wings here and here, but they've got stripes on their tail. So multiple black and white stripes. If you're flying overhead, that is a red-shouldered hawk. Broad-winged hawk, smaller still, and a big white stripe on the tail. All right. Also notice, so this was my friend who was a raptor rehabilitator. And I tried to adjust the size of the picture, so you'll notice the hands are about the same size here. So notice in comparison, broad-winged hawks are smaller than red-tailed hawks, but then like a falcon and they're coming up, they would be smaller still. So sometimes that helps too, just kind of getting a that relative size difference. Rough-legged hawks, I hope I can get better pictures this winter. But going out in winter, like to the Wallkill Preserve, that's there are birds that's the only time you get to see them. As we start again in the accipiters, harriers are the easiest ones to see because they just fly over marshes and wetlands, and you can see this big white spot on them. Here's at sunset, so the sunlight is catching them, so they look kind of neat. All right, but once again, kind of neat to get pictures. Goshawks would be a real treat to see. Turkey vultures, obviously with the red heads. A couple other things about turkey vultures is big birds need to warm up. So you'll very often see them, outstretching their dark wings. And as they fly, sometimes you can see like a light gray patch here. So it's black here and light gray elsewhere. Light gray elsewhere. All right, so the head, if you get a good view, is a good one here. But can you see the different shades on the wings? So black there, but white, like a lighter gray on the feathers. And that's important because black vultures will be just a little bit different. So you look for the head, but like if you don't get a good look, you see like, oh, dark here, but that's all light. That would be a good one, Adrian. I'll get to them, just show you this picture. Whereas if you were to look at a black vulture here, notice there's like white on the wingtips, but you don't see that same pattern. Okay. So Adrian, yes, you had a question?
We had an influx of black vultures, like 1,000 of them. And they nested here, and they actually wound up having to euthanize several of them.
Ooh, okay.
They caused over $15,000 in damage eating the rubber lining off the roofs of buildings.
Oh, wow.
Is there a reason why they have such a taste for rubber? I've heard people having their cars damaged because they eat their windshield wipers.
Huh.
You've never
So
heard
the
of
question here, if you couldn't hear for the room, was apparently there have been problems with black vultures going after rubber, the rubber on cars like windshield wipers or the asphalt on roofs, to the point where they've done thousands and thousands dollars worth of damage and have to be euthanized. I apologize, I don't know. So I honestly I don't ever I've never heard someone reporting on that problem. Once again, just in my lifetime, they're kind of new as far as, slowly getting into this area. So some of the problems that we might face with an excess of black vultures, once again, I'm fascinated by the story. That's a great story. But that story, I'm sure I will start to hear more and more of that. Um, I haven't yet. Think interesting now. I'm trying to think. So what I'm about to say, I'm pretty sure that this is correct. But I'm trying to hunt for anything in my knowledge bank that might ask why they go after rubber, and I can't think of anything. Um, they don't smell well though. Turkey vultures do. A lot of birds don't smell well because if you've got like this face, a lot of times you just decide what can I lose and economize and save space. So a lot of birds, their sense of smell is gone. Like great horned owls eat skunks. They're the only natural predators of skunks because they don't smell. All right, because nothing that smells would go after a skunk. Um, black vultures often look for turkey vultures, which can smell. So turkey vultures might smell a carcass and go to it. Black vultures can't smell it, but they can see the turkey vultures and they'll follow them. So, but anyway, I was in my brain, I'm like, is that an answer to your question? I realized, no, I'm not going nowhere with that. So Adrian, I'm sorry. I don't think I have any
That's
help,
okay. I
anything
was
helpful
just
for you.
curious if you knew because you've been to Florida. And also maybe it was a nutritional thing. Maybe there's some kind of
Yeah.
mineral.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Okay,
I'm even wondering like as far as whether like if a roof is going to be the place where they're going to perch a lot. All right. So whether like, if this is their hangout, if they're going to, like maybe make nests, if they're going to try to heat up in the morning, whether, like how all things will kind of like make a nest and adjust the environment to their needs and their desires, whether they're using that as nesting material. So like if their nest has asphalt, does it warm up faster? Does that help them hold heat? I'm just making this up. But like, are they eating it or like they may be transporting it? Or if they want to hang out on the roof, is it getting too hot for them? Right? Because vultures, they do something weird. If vultures overheat, they try to cool down by defecating on their legs. So if you've got a black asphalt roof, one might imagine like it might get too hot, and maybe a vulture that says, hey, this is my roof. I'm going to try to cool it. I'm just making stuff up. And so I'll go on at this point. So yeah, Dorothy.
About 5 years ago, about a family who lived in the woods. They had a very nice home, but it ended up being a route for black vultures
Mm-hmm.
who perched on their porch and would not allow them to come out because black vultures are so
Wow.
aggressive versus the
Turkey vultures.
right,
Turkey vultures?
turkey vultures don't seem to be aggressive.
No. So Dorothy, if you can't hear at home, there was a story where black vultures were aggressively moving into someone's porch to the point where like people were having trouble moving in and out.
They couldn't kill them because they're under the environmental
Right.
protection.
Right.
I mean, I think I'd be ready to try to figure out how I
My house. Yeah. That's interesting. So I'm kind of at a loss now because getting to this point in the presentation, do we squeeze another bird? I think I can mention 3 more birds. But now, do you go for the owls or do you go for the falcons? Falcons come out in the day, and so you might confuse them with the birds we've just talked about. So I'm going to opt with them. But actually, it's just recently been accepted that falcons aren't related to hawks and eagles. They're actually more closely related to songbirds. So once again, the word raptor kind of groups together a bunch of people that aren't, or a bunch of birds that aren't really relatives. So technically, like genetically, owls would fit better now, but I think just with the topic, falcons would. So if it's okay with you, I'm just going to kind of go in with falcons, starting with the smallest of the falcons, the American kestrel. All right, so beautiful little bird, nice coloration there. I'll go to videos in just a second. You can get some slate gray coloration, right? Just beautiful, beautiful. Now they're so small that they eat a lot of insects in addition to small animals. So, you'll see them going after grasshoppers, etc. We do have bigger falcons as well. There's a Merlin you'll see videos of in a second. And then finally, the peregrine falcon, which when it stoops at over 200 miles an hour is frequently considered to be the fastest bird on Earth. Okay, so let me go to the falcons, which are here somewhere. Okay. So I was just in Cape May, as I've mentioned, and saw a little kestrel. Here it is, and there's a mouse. All right, so they eat a diversity of things. Now, and also keep in mind, females are bigger than males. So will kestrels eat mice? Sure they will, but females are more likely to eat the mice, whereas males being a little smaller, grasshoppers maybe a little more. So I mean, they'll eat both, but once again, the size difference is such that they can include different things on their in their diet. These can hover, so unlike most birds of prey, you might see them flying, but then just kind of stop in midair and just stay still, but just flapping their wings as they hover, looking for something, maybe a bug or a mouse or something. So if you see birds hovering, that behavior then could help. And so these are neat birds to see. And so here I saw this was Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. But can you see it kind of hovering? All right, red-tailed hawks don't do that. All right, so that if you see that, that's a telltale behavior of a kestrel. Here's a Merlin, and I'd like to show you two Merlins. First Merlin I ever saw was actually on the roof of one of the buildings here on campus during migration. And I'm stressing the migration because they don't spend their summers here. This one I filmed in Canada at an Audubon conference this summer, where two adults were feeding a juvenile. All right, so here is an adult which has, I'm sorry, I think that's the juvenile. So here's the adult. It killed a bird, which it then took to the juvenile, which then proceeded then to eat the bird. So you can see the bird's feet there. So there's a period after which a bird leaves a nest that it still might not be independent from its parents. So, it's flying around on its own, but the parents still might bring it some food as it's learning to hunt on its own. So this would be a Merlin, a falcon that's bigger than a kestrel. If you haven't seen them, once again, we tend to see them in spring as they go from southern regions up to like northern New York, New England, and Canada. All right, and we can see them in southern regions here, and so here it is in Canada. Okay, but I got to see one in Cape May. When I was there. But also here is the Wallkill. So this was about 2 weeks ago, where I was in Orange County on the Jersey border, and you'll see how close I got because these are good pictures, just because flew right by me and landed in a tree right there. Because it had caught something. I think that's a dragonfly. Yeah, you can see it now. So it caught a dragonfly. It's going to proceed to eat it there. And so it was just next to the Winding Waters Trail. So I was able to get nice pictures of it. And so notice the pointed wings when it was keeping its balance. So every time of year is a good time to go bird watching. And autumn just has these things. You can see a Merlin in autumn, but you're not going to see it in summer or winter. So just the autumn birds are different from the later. And then the biggest of the falcons are the peregrine falcons. So here's one from that Raptor Rehabilitation Center. So I got closer. I can see them in the wild, but very often, because they are such fast birds, I haven't really gotten good images of my own photography yet. I obviously hope to as I go. They are so fast that they are a major predator of large birds. So like if you've got like lots of ducks and geese over a wetland, what they like to do is just fly really high and then all of a sudden quick tuck in their wings, and then they start a dive at a stoop, and they're traveling at 200 miles an hour plus. Or I think I heard 260 once. That might be a little high. People argue about how fast is the fastest. But if you're flying that fast and you're coming at a bird from above, when you hit it, it's just, you do such damage. And so they can prey on waterfowl bigger than themselves because with the force of that acceleration. They actually get along okay with people because they like to nest on cliff faces. But we people, we tend to build large size skyscrapers with these sheer edges and bridges. And so it's not been unheard of for peregrines to nest in cities and on bridges, etc. Back in the day, I knew someone whose parents went to a baseball game. It was the Philadelphia Phillies, and the husband was really interested in the Phillies, and the wife was a bird watcher. But she had a great time because there were peregrine falcons hunting the pigeons in the stadium, and so he's watching the game, and she's got her binoculars, and they both had a great time. This last video I have is as species form, there's a point where while they are a different species from another one, they're still close enough that they can mate. All right, and so this would be a hybrid between a peregrine falcon and one that doesn't occur in our area called a gerfalcon. Every now and then you see something that looks a little odd, and that's because it's a hybrid of two of the species, which we consider. There's something in the chat. There's a pair nest on the Mid-Hudson Bridge for most years. I've heard that. So I hate to say that because if it were me, and I apologize, but any good birder, you've got stories like this where you're like which car accident did you almost get in because you're like, is that this warbler? And you're like, ugh. And so what birds you can see from bridges, I don't like to advertise that because someone like me, I would be like, all right, here I am at the bridge. Look, there's the peregrine falcon. But thank you for that.
You're safe in this instance because you can go to Shadow's restaurant,
Uh-huh.
right below the bridge.
Oh, okay.
You can park there and look.
Oh, thank you. Okay. All right. So there you can park by the bridge and look. So that's much better than I would do. Thank you for your expert birding advice. So on the Raptors, my kind of plan was, as we look at the diversity of birds this semester, to break it up evenly. And just to pause here, we could throw the owls in, but I was going to mention owls next time with all of the other things that aren't songbirds. So that would include hummingbirds, it would include woodpeckers, it would include kingfishers, and a couple of other things. So, this discussion of raptors, we could continue then next week. This is such a great time of year. I hope you can get out and see some raptors, or just get out because it's such a wonderful time of year. Thank you all for coming. Did anybody have any final questions? Sure. Oh, okay, so Dorothy's going to say a few words quickly. And let me adjust the camera. Sure. Yeah, everybody can see.
Okay, I'm just showing you a poster for the lecture that we will have tomorrow at noon, and also it'll be repeated on the 29th on our Newburgh campus in the evening, and that is on the Atlantic and short-nosed sturgeon, which dates back to the dinosaurs. So, and of course, the sturgeons are famous for living in our Hudson River, and their caviar. So this the lecture is by Amanda Higgs, who has dealt with the sturgeons since 2000. She represents us meaning this area on committees that protect the sturgeons. And so I hope if you have time tomorrow, you may want to come over to room 112, which is where we were in the summer.
In the Rally building?
The Rally building, or catch it at in Kaplan Hall on October 29. So anyway, it should be really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.